Sean Green at SoccerCoachTV. Just want to thank you for stopping by my YouTube channel. If you find my coaching videos useful, I'd really appreciate it if you subscribe to my channel, press the notification button, so in that way you can receive all the content as soon as it comes out. Thank you. Okay guys, Sean Green here from SoccerCoachTV. It's my girlfriend Nicole. I've asked her to join me as she does every night. Glass of wine, some cheese, we're going to have some fun. So let me tell you what this is about. Newtown Pride FC, down there in Sandy Hook, Connecticut. And they invited me a few months ago to collaborate with them on some projects and to use my audience as a platform to hear their voice. And it's a fantastic organization, fantastic football club with all the right reasons. It was founded in 1998 by Mike Svonda and his son Matt Svonda, who run the organization. I went down and did a clinic, you may have seen it on YouTube, with me and Olga. We went down and did a training session. And absolutely the most gracious people, the most humble people you'll ever meet in your life. Most people are in it just for football. They're in it for football and they've got a cause. And that's to shed light and to help the people from the tragedy at Sandy Hook Elementary School in 2012, and when the massacre there in Connecticut resonated all over the world. Too many people lost their lives that day, young children, school teachers, you name it. And as of that day, the Newtown Pride FC team has dedicated all their games to remembering the families of Sandy Hook. And so when they reached out to me, I was obviously going to get on board. It's just anything that we could do to bring awareness and to bring support to that. They also do a great job in terms of charity work. Matt and Mike, they work heavily with the Newtown Youth and Family Services there. I actually went down to Newtown and they showed me around the mental health services facilities. And I got to tell you, they are absolutely top class. It was an old mental institution. And after the Sandy Hook shootings, GE renovated all these buildings, multi-million dollars, and put in state-of-the-art classrooms, state-of-the-art swimming pools, sauna, you name it. It is top class. Indoor soccer facilities. So now all the community have somewhere to go. And the services that they provide for people, when I was down there and talking to the staff down there, and they run classes for the first responders from that time. The teachers, the crossing guards who were there that day. Again, those first police officers, the medical staff. These are people who impacted. That experience will never leave them the rest of their life, and for them to be able to sit down and know there's somewhere for mental wellness, or at least some kind of support, is a great cause. And Matt and Mike, we love what you're doing. You keep it going. So Mike invited me. He's been doing this for a couple of weeks, inviting a guest to do a little taste test and to talk about some food, but also just bring people together and bring some awareness. So here we are for Newtown Pride FC. So what I decided to do was, I like a glass of wine now and then, and so got a glass of wine here. My preference is Merlot when I drink, and Pinot Noir. What did I say?
Pinot Noir.
Yeah, Pinot Noir.
Pinot Noir.
So we're going to try some red wine with some different cheeses. I went out today and bought some different cheeses. So this is going to be like a World Cup of cheeses, in so many words, okay? So Nicole, this is what I got. I got whiskey cheddar. Where's that from? Does it tell you where it's from?
It is distributed from Atlanta, Georgia.
No, but originally it's from where?
Oh, my bad. I am sorry. It's flavored with Irish whiskey. It's from Ireland.
It's from Ireland.
Ireland.
So we got Ireland in the house. Ireland's going to be the first one up there, that whiskey sour cheese. The second one we're going to try is called, let me put my glasses on, 1,000 Days Aged Gouda.
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 Gouda. I've never had this. So it's 1,000 days old. It's like a pair of my underpants.
Ew.
And so we've got...
That one's from Holland.
Holland.
This one's Holland.
We've got Ireland, we've got Holland, and now USA. USA. This is from New York. And this is XXX sharp cheddar. And this is 18 months old. 18 months old, this one. Excuse me. We got a dog in the house. You know what it's like with a dog. It's like a buddy all get every time we get on Skype or something. His dog goes crazy, and so he sets my dog, their dog sets my dog off. And so all you can hear is just dogs barking in the back. But this is USA, from New York, 18 months old. So, I'm going to try these different cheeses, and I'm going to tell you what I think, and we're going to have the first, second, and third place. We'll get through this. Alright, so. Alright, Nicole, what do you want to try first? How about the Irish cheese?
Oh, you're being adventurous. We're going to go for the 1,000 days later.
You know, I've kind of like got a bias towards the Irish because my mum's Irish. Half my family's Irish. She's from Derry in Northern Ireland. And I used to call her Irish Annie. Absolutely wonderful woman. Laugh. That's where I get my sense of humor from, is from my mother. She would tell jokes like you never experienced in your life. So, okay, let's try a piece of this. Okay.
All right.
There you go. There you
that
go.
one away because we tried it, or we cut it.
I'm going to take a piece. I'm not going to eat too much right now, but we'll finish this up later on.
I'm going to smell it first.
You go. Doesn't really smell.
It tastes good.
Does it?
I'm missing the crackers, but this tastes good.
We're out of crackers. We're going to go and get some crackers.
That's really good.
Yeah, have a sip of wine with it, though. It adds to the palate.
I'm with Andy here. I'd prefer beer, too.
Well, I wouldn't say.
Pretty good. I like it.
It hasn't got a kick to it. I like it, something that's really sharp, that when you put it in your mouth, it really blends with the wine. So for me, I'll hold my opinions, my vote back until I try the other two. It may be the best of the three. So,
well, we're polar opposites.
there you go, your turn. How about we go for
No, we're going to save that one for last.
Holland?
That one looks like
Now we're going for New York. Now
We're
remember,
going New York. XXX sharp cheddar.
XXX sharp cheddar.
It's been aged for 18 months.
18 months, jeez.
You had twins.
Here we go. What do you want? You want some too? You want to try a little bit of cheese?
Don't give the dog cheese.
Okay.
All right.
This is cheddar. Cheddar cheese.
Cheddar.
How's the cooking going through this? Are you guys making some great meals? I'm not a great cook. I had to learn myself.
That was aged, not the wine.
I think the best thing I had, I made an egg McMuffin yesterday for breakfast. It was absolutely brilliant.
All right, we'll get rid of this one.
Okay.
All right.
This is the
XXX.
This is from New York
cheese.
City. Okay, we'll try it. Cheddar. Pretty good.
Pretty good.
Mm.
I'm still down with the whiskey though. That was cheddar too, the first one.
Okay, third one. Holland. Holland in the house. And then we're going to move on. This is really hard.
Well, it's aged 1,000 days.
1,000 days? How many months is that?
You would be hard.
How many months is that?
What? He's laughing. I'm all putting my math skills here on test. Oh wow.
Pretty good.
But it's a different flavor. Because the other two.
I think I'd have to go with give them a vote. First place, I'd give it to Holland. Second to New York, third to Ireland, even though my family's half Irish.
I'm totally backwards on you. First place, I'm going to Ireland.
Wow.
I like the Irish one better. New York is in second, and
What?
not too much about this one, this 1000-day aged cheddar Gouda.
So, I want to chat a little bit about a couple of things, if you're interested. I want to give you some insight into some of my favorite books that I've read. This is a good time to do it, right? When we're in isolation. And if you can get these books on Amazon, I think you can, but these are some books you may not have heard of, but are some of my favorite football books of all time. And the first book is a book called Kicked Into Touch. And it's a book by Fred A. And you pronounce his last name is I think it's E-Y-R-E, Fred A. And the book is absolutely hilarious. It's the funniest football book you'll ever read. And when I got it, my coach gave it to me when I was younger. And I took it home and I went to bed and I started reading it. And I was still up at 6 o'clock in the morning reading this book. I could not put it down. I read it all in one sitting. It was hilarious. Now, Fred A was a former professional soccer player. In fact, he was the first apprentice that Man City ever had. Believe it or not. And he never made it to the first team. And he went around lots of different clubs trying to make it. And every club he went to, he never made the first team. He was always in the reserves or in the third team. And his story, his journey is that he became a very successful stationeer. The guy was selling paper and he had his great business, made a lot of money. But his journey in football was one that, every kid wants to go on and try and be a pro. And that's one thing, the kids that we deal with here in the US, one of my pet peeves is that every player that the senior level that I coach wants to be a professional footballer. And they really have no concept what it's like and what it takes to be a pro and not just be a professional soccer player, but to sustain it, to be with clubs, year in, year out. There's lots of players out there who go and get a pro tryout, get a contract, and 12 months later they're out doing something else, selling whatever, sales reps or whatever. But to be able to be a professional footballer, there's so many qualities there, and one of the problems is a lot of the younger kids don't have a realistic grasp on that, But Fred A had a realistic grasp. He knew he was just that little bit short of making first teams at all these clubs, and some funny stories. Alan Ball, who played for England in the '66 World Cup final, his dad was a football coach too, very famous football coach in England. And he was friends with Alan Ball Jr. and Alan Ball Sr. And one day he was driving his car through the Mersey Tunnel and he broke down halfway through. And it just so happens that Alan Ball and his father were driving past and recognized him and pulled over to help him. But he refused to help, he said, because he didn't want to be known as the soccer player who got dragged out of the Mersey Tunnel by the balls. Get in there. It's just hilarious stuff. He was talking about this game he played. He was playing for the reserve team of some pro club and they were playing in some cup game, and it was the first leg of, it was a 2-leg game in the cup game, and it was a pissing down of rain, one of these English nights, and it's a Wednesday game, and they had a thin squad, and he said he went to the game, and the manager's team talk before the game was, listen, he says, we're going to come here tonight and we are going to play for a tie. He says, I don't want any of you players to leave our own half of the field. We're just going to park the bus. We're going to stay in here. We're going to go back home with a tie, and we'll beat them when we get them at home. So he was playing centre forward, and they won the toss. They won the kickoff. And he said, he kicked the ball off, and the ball got pinged out to the winger. And the winger went dribbling down, beat the outside midfield player, took on the fullback, beat the fullback, whipped this great cross in. He says, I just kept on running. He said, I got into the box and I kept on running. He said, I did this diving header and boom, into the back of the net. 1-0 up after 5 seconds in the game. Unbelievable, they went 1-0 up. And as he turned around in a soaking wet rain, his manager was on the sidelines yelling with his hands up. And he thought, get in there, 1-0. And he said, when he ran closer to the manager, he could make out what the manager was saying. And the manager was saying, you bastard, I told you not to leave your own half of the field. Just classic stuff that you can imagine. I could tell you stories for hours about some of the managers that I played for back in England. For pub teams particularly, man. It was absolutely unbelievable there. But listen, Fred Air kicked into touch. Absolutely great book. Check it out. Other book I'd recommend to you is one of my favorites is by Gary Barnett. Gary Barnett was the American football, not English football, but the American football coach at Northwestern University in Colorado. And the title of this book is We Got High Hopes. And when he took over Northwestern, they stunk, apparently. And he got them up to being a very competitive team. And that season that I read this book, this had to be 15 years ago, maybe longer, but that season when I read that book, I based my entire season on his methods. It really did. And it did work. Great guy, great motivator. But his big thing was, that resonated with me, was a thing called belief without evidence. And he talked about, having faith. You know, when you know what you're doing is right, yet the results aren't there. Okay, you have blind faith. And, you know, what's the point of having faith anyway if it's never tested, right? Is it really faith if it's never tested? And it was really tested in that season for sure for him. And he talks about, you know, faith is, the belief without evidence is what religion's founded on. I've never seen God. I don't know if he's there or not. Never seen him, but a lot of people have blind faith. I mean, there's been more wars in the world over history fought over God than anything else. Yet nobody's seen him. And he hasn't showed up on your doorstep. And so it's having faith in something. So as a coach, when the results aren't going your way, or even things in your life aren't going your way, the big thing is that you've got to know that when you look at the scoreboard, if you beat 2-0, you have to believe that what you're doing is right. Your commitment, your training methods, your practice methods, your team culture is right, and sooner or later that's going to change around. So, you know, really interesting guy. He did this thing with his players, which we stole that season. The book is called We Got High Hopes. And so he made t-shirts for every one of the football players and the staff on the team. And it was an acronym, WGHH, We Got High Hopes. And that's all it said on the t-shirt, WGHH. And when he distributed the t-shirts to the staff and the team meeting and the players, he gave them all one. And it was on the back of their shirts, WGHH. And he asked them to make a vow, to make a pact, to not tell anybody, to keep it within the team, to keep it within the staff, what it means. It was a secret for them. And it was an exercise in trust. Can I trust you? When I ask you to do something and keep it confidential, can I trust you? And it was a great exercise, a great team bond. And when we did it, you know, people would come up to me, and I know players came up to me and said, yeah, my girlfriend wanted to know what it was. He says, Coach, I didn't tell him what it was. It's just that unity, it's that loyalty, it's that trust factor, which is very hard to obtain and very easy to lose. And it's a great book. Again, it's called We Got High Hopes by Gary Barnett, and it's one of my favorites. And if you're looking for something different from tactics and skills and stuff like that, an insight into team building for a team which from rock bottom went to the top, it's got great examples in it. It's definitely definitely worth looking at. So, Nicole,
Yeah.
what is the what's the biggest thing you miss going through all this?
The biggest thing I miss is probably going to the gym.
Yeah.
Well, no, that's kind of selfish of me. I miss going to see my mom. I miss just doing, saying hello to friends and actually having those simple cups of coffee. It's the small things that you miss. But those days that just going to the gym and just letting it out and just being able to get on with your day, and that it's harder to do it at home than most people would even imagine, as you would, just actually go into a facility.
Yeah, stuff we take for granted, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
Little things. I miss swimming. I'm a big swimmer. I try to swim every day if I possibly can. But I miss swimming, and it's those things that we do, everyday things that we take for granted. I'll tell you what I really do miss. I was grocery shopping this morning, and I wear a mask when I go into the grocery store, probably like everybody else. And when I walk past people in my normal life pre-corona, as I walk past everybody, I would smile.
And you talk to everybody.
And talk to everybody. And the thing is, when people are passing you with masks, you can't see the smile. You can't see their face. You can't see their reaction. I do miss that. I do miss seeing people smile a lot. That strangers that you don't know. And so that was something. So I want to share with you something. We've got about another 5 minutes. I'm going to share some things with you. These are a pair of football boots. I'll tell you how I got these. These are well over 100 years old, these boots. And you see the studs in the bottom. In fact, here's the extra studs.
Oh, wow, look at those.
These are sharp as hell. They'll poke your eye out. You have to go to a cobbler, and they would put these studs in when the wore down. But these are these are probably 1890s, these boots. And I got these when Rod Stewart came over to the United States, and he trained at a training ground for a week. And the Scottish national team did, and Rod Stewart came down for the day. And I was his host. I was there to meet with him, me and this other guy called Jimmy Sheridan. We were the coaches there, and we spent the first half hour, just Rod Stewart, me, and my assistant, on the field with a soccer ball. I was in goal. He was taking shots, and great guy, super hell of a player too. And he was training with the Scottish national team that day, and they were making a music documentary to raise money for the kids in Dunblane. It was another massacre out there in Scotland, and he had this national team jersey on, a Scottish national team jersey. And when he left, he actually had left the jersey, he took it off, and he had left it on the field. And I was picking up afterwards, and I found his jersey, the one Rod Stewart was wearing for the video. And I have a friend called Al Bell. He's originally from Scotland here, an old guy, super guy, big-time soccer person. And I give him that jersey, and in return, he gave me these boots, because he knew I collect antique soccer memorabilia, which I do. I collect soccer postcards. I've got hundreds and hundreds. Years ago, I wrote to these different postcard dealers out in the country when they have these postcard kind of like weekends where they have these big shows. So I said to them, I says, look, if you see any soccer postcards, buy them and I'll buy them from you. So I was really adamant about it. So I got all these cards. I probably had one of the biggest collections I'd imagine in the world in terms of antique soccer postcards. I don't know how many more other people have an interest in that. But what I loved about them, these date back to like 1890s, these cards, and the artwork is absolutely phenomenal, brilliant stuff. And the second thing was reading the back of them, reading the messages and from the back of them, the things they talked about in those days. It's just really fascinating for me. Cigarette cards, I collected a lot of those, because what they used to do in packs of cigarettes in the old days, decades ago, to sell the cigarettes over a competition, they used to put a card in there of a soccer player. But again, the artwork's beautiful. It's just a real beautiful design. They're really fascinating to me anyway. But these boots, as I said, about over 100 years old. And the thing about football boots is that the evolution of football boots, as we know them, is quite interesting. You know, the working class people who played the game just used to work. You know, they'd be working at coal mines and come out and play football in their work boots. They didn't have any specific designed boots for soccer back then. And these boots here, as I said, these are studs, but the boots that predated these in soccer, they didn't have studs. They had like a leather bar across here. And it was after the World War II when traveling it was peacetime and international games become more common and more frequent, then there was a greater demand for better footwear. And one of the big events, and I'm not sure, I can't remember what year it was, in the 50s I think, it was Hungary against England at Wembley Stadium. And Hungary spanked England 6-3, I think it was, at Wembley. And when Hungary came onto the field, they were wearing a totally different style of soccer shoe compared to England. England was still wearing stuff like this. And Hungary came on the field with kind of like running shoes. The more resembled boots as you saw them today. Mm-hmm. The coach was a real innovator, and I had a great play at the time. I mean, they won a 24-game unbeaten streak. They were the Olympic champions. They're taking on England at Wembley. The coach was an innovator. He was out one day and he's watching runners run around the track, and he said, why are we wearing boots when soccer's about running? You know, you're covering in between 8 to 10 miles in a game per player. Mm-hmm. Why are we wearing, coal miners' boots? So they changed the style. They showed up at Wembley Stadium with a much lighter footwear, and they ran the pants off England and beat them 6-3. But they had Puskas, who was arguably the best player in the world at the time. But England went back from that game. Not only did they re-examine their footwear and totally revamp the style of footwear at that time, and this is one of the change points in the game of football. And I'll talk about it in a second, but that was eye-opener for them to change their style of training, change their techniques, change their tactics. It really had an impact. It was embarrassing. It was a kick in the ass for England, and it made them think and kind of regrow from there. But and then after the war, boots became a little bit more sophisticated. They were still made of leather back then, and obviously today they're not. They're made of different synthetic materials now. But you would have to look after your boots. You'd have to actually go and buy a jar of dubbin. Dubbin is wax. And you used to have to get a cloth and put wax on. You used to wax your boots to waterproof them and look after them. Oh, what's happening here? So
I learned something today.
So yeah.
Because when you used to talk to your players and say, put on your boots, mm-hmm. That's where it derived from. Because I've known them as cleats. And I had no idea what you were talking about as a coach. And the
United States are the only...
Put your boots up. And I'm like, what are you talking about?
Cleat anyway? I mean, I've never got that. I mean, United States are the only country in the world that call boots cleats.
Really?
Yeah.
I've never been told to the coach to put my boots on, and I was like, huh.
So listen, you got, after World War II, as I said, international games become more frequent because of peacetime. And so there was a greater demand on different footwear. There was, companies started up. Rudolf Dassler and Adolf Dassler. They were pioneers in football. The football boots, football wear. I think they were twin brothers, or certainly they were brothers. I'm not sure they're twins or not. But Rudolf and his brother, they started Adidas. I think Rudolf started Adidas, and his brother Adolf started Puma at the time. It's after the war. And Puma, their big thing was the 1970 World Cup when Pelé wore the Super Atom boot with his famous signature on the side of the boots. I don't know if anybody remembers those, but he would he highlighted that boot and it became very, very popular. My favorite boot of all time, I don't know if you know this boot, but it's called Adidas San Diego. Or it was kind of like Adidas World Cup boots. I loved the long tongue that used to come out from the front of them. Loved those boots. I got a pair of, I can't remember what it was, but I got a pair of boots one time. My friend Mark Wilson in England, he was at Burnley, he was playing at Burnley Football Club, and this, I think it was a Welsh international, a guy called Leighton James was playing for Burnley at the time, and Leighton James gave my friend his boots, and he gifted them to me. And I gotta tell you, these things were like wearing fresh air. They were so lightweight, made out of kangaroo skin, the best boots I've ever had in my life. But I just find that stuff interesting. There's stuff you never see every day, like the soccer ball here. This soccer ball is probably about 100 years.
Do you want to
No,
No.
It's about 100 years of age. It wasn't waterproof back then. You played in the rain, it got about 10 pounds heavier, and you couldn't lift it off the ground. You couldn't cross it. And heaven forbid if you headed it, because it had laces in it and it would leave an imprint on your forehead if you made contact with that. But, all right. So, if you've got any questions, shoot them at me. We've got another couple of minutes left. If not, I'm going to share a couple of stories with you before we go. So,
You have 8?
I'll tell you what we'll do.
20?
I love this book.
Yeah, that's a good book.
I love this book.
That's a great book.
And it's 2,000 questions about me. Not about me personally, just about yourself. I picked this up for like $5. And it's got 2,000 questions in there. So, Nicole.
Oh, you're gonna put me on the spot. We've done this before.
I'm gonna
What's
put you
great
on the
about
spot.
this book is you can take your significant other or your friends. We've done this with my friends and
Yep.
do FaceTime, and you just pick a number, and then that's it. You're on the spot. You have to answer that question, but it's cool the way it.
Some of the questions are stupid.
Some are like not
Some are interesting though.
interesting, and some are not. Good for your life.
Yeah.
But it's okay. Like when you get into it and then depth, you get.
But
to
you
know
see,
about people.
I like that stuff.
And I like
too.
asking questions about people.
I like that stuff, and I'll tell you why. Because, right now we're in that age where there's so many kind of Zoom meetings going on, and coaches are guests on different shows, and everybody's talking about periodization, about rondos, about tactics, drills, from my under fives to my
2,000 questions.
all kinds of stuff. Guys, for me, I mean, right now, it's not interesting to me. As I said, I've probably seen every drill in football, or a variation of it, whatever. I want to just ask different questions, and it's just who I am, how I are. When I'm on the pitch, forget it though. We're all in 1,000%. But right now, when I'm home, I need food, I need nourishment, I need mental nourishment. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
And so, okay.
So you know what, Sean? I'm gonna put you on the spot,
Okay,
not
good.
me.
All
You're
right.
on the spot. Pick a number.
Number 1,000.
You want to see something crazy? You heard him say 1,000, right? And he didn't even see me flip through the book. The book is on number 1,000, the page where number 1,000 would be. So that's kind of weird.
What's the question?
Haha! What is the meaning of life?
What is the meaning of life? Wow.
I don't think you can answer that question. I don't think you
I
can
think-
answer both
I think
questions.
it- you know what
I
it
think
is?
it pertains to you,
Yeah.
but not what the meaning of life is for everyone else.
I mean, your meaning of life, like you said, could be, it's
That was
different
weird.
from mine and different from, our friends watching this right now. I will tell you that my philosophy of life is that I think that the most important thing you have is time.
Absolutely.
And the problem is that every decision you make about your future, about your family, about your career, is pretty much based on time. It's based on the fact that you think that you're going to be here until you're 70 or 80 years of age. So you have this schedule planned out, and you assume that you're going to be an old lady or an old man, right? If you based your every decision on that, big problem. Okay, I'll tell you why. I mean, in 2006, I died. I was dead. I mean, I flatlined. I had a massive heart attack. I knew I was dying. Went to the hospital. I did a CPR course the week before, and I recognized the signs. I got home from a recruiting trip in England, and my chest was so heavy. It was in the middle of the night, and I got up, and my ex-wife at the time, she called an ambulance, and I was on the kitchen floor, and my 3 boys were standing above me watching me, and luckily I was 5 minutes from the hospital, and they rushed me to hospital. It was like 1 o'clock in the morning, and I knew I was dead. You know, they rushed me to the emergency room, operating theater, put me down, ripped my clothes off, stuck an IVs in me, and I just remember looking up at this surgeon who had 2 paddles in his hands, and I looked at him and I said, "Don't let me die." And at that moment, I was gone, flatlined. You know, my ex would tell me everybody's yelling code blue and screaming, the nurses and everybody, but I was gone. I was zeroed out. And you know, people ask me, you know, you talk about meaning of life, and so you only live once. You don't. You know, I'm living twice. But at that moment, I felt like I was at the deepest pond, the deepest lake you could ever be in. It was so black, and I heard the faintest whisper, and that whisper was telling me to breathe, so soft. And then it got gradually louder and louder and louder until eventually I opened my eyes, and this nurse's face is 6 inches from mine, screaming. She wasn't breathing, she wasn't telling me it softly, she was screaming all the time. I was just so deep down there, so far away, that I couldn't make it out, couldn't hear it until it was clear. And she was in my face, just tears in her eyes. And I mean, the doctor told me, he says, look, he says, once we put the paddles on you, you got a 1 in 10 chance of living. So when I talk about life, you know, life, I was a coach before then, a coach after, 2 totally different coaches. My perspectives were totally different.
But you were a totally different father. You were a totally different human. You
different
were totally
father.
different from everything.
Yeah, I looked at life totally different. And even on the, you know, when I got out of surgery and I had 2 stents put in, and I was in hospital for like 10, 12 days. When I got out of hospital, or when I was in hospital, before they discharge you in hospital after a massive heart attack like that, you have to walk like 5 times around the ward. Mm-hmm. And I swear to God, I mean, that was the scariest thing I ever done in my life, was to try and walk. I was convinced I was going to just have another heart attack.
You were afraid.
I would have. Yeah.
You were afraid.
I would have. If I had a choice between walking around the ward or go through this Afghanistan minefield, I would have went through the Afghanistan minefield.
Oh, I'm sorry.
But
That was.
yeah, it's tough. But lessons learned. I mean, it was interesting coming back from the hospital and driving back in a minivan, and it was sunny outside, and I rolled the window down, and you know, the wind was in my face from the sunny outside, and it's windy, and I was just crying. You know, my kids were upset because I was crying, and I told them not to be upset because there were tears of joy. You know, it's just to feel the wind on your face. You know, these are things that I try never to lose as a person. And I think that, you know, I don't want to be in that position where I forget about what it's like to have the wind on my face. And when I got back to practice, one of the first practices that I got back after dying and coming back, I stood in the middle of the soccer field. My players to the left that went for dinner, and it was pre-season, and I stood right in the middle of the center circle. I put my hands out, and it was pouring down the rain.
The small things you take for granted.
Tears were just coming down my eyes. It was it's life changing, you know. It's life changing. But well, I put a bummer on that one, right? All right, your turn.
Oh, my turn.
Okay, give me a number.
We're at 37 minutes here, Gaffo.
Okay,
So.
we got 2 minutes, guys. That's it. We're bouncing. She's gonna answer her question. We're out of here. Okay, what number?
Oh. You know what? I'm gonna pick 555.
Like it. Well, we got to talk about that sometime, man.
We'll talk about numbers one time and what you see.
Numerology. I'm a very big believer in numerology. What have you read online recently that inspired you?
Online?
Yeah, that inspired you.
I don't necessarily think it was anything online that I've read, but it's something I've seen.
Shoot, go ahead.
It'll be too long, I think, to tell the story, but I think I told you about,
Right.
and I think it might be going too deep,
Yeah.
to be honest with you, but in a gist, I read someone who, or I was watching a video on someone who I may have had myself a preconceived notion about. And then I looked deeper and I dug deeper into her lifespan. And as she was trying to help someone else out, you know, it was all about judgment. And my heart went out to her because in her way of saying it, and I don't want to put her name out there, she was kind of wearing a facade. I don't care what people think, I don't, you know, and then deeper down when it hit hard at home, and I actually watched her in a video, and she was heartbroken, and inside of her, she really did care, but she put that facade on for everybody else, and people were picking on her, and it just, my heart melted, because, you know, you don't really get to know someone unless you get to know them, and I don't really know her personally, but I think like in a conversation, and that's what inspired me, that she showed her vulnerability.
But you know,
that instead of,
you know, now, I mean, you think back though, I mean, it's the internet, Facebook, all the social media outlets they're actually a saving grace for people who in the past had no outlet to reach out to people, right?
Absolutely.
I mean, pre-internet, okay? So you're talking about, you know, 1990, whatever, before it really started in 1994, 5. Before then, if you had mental issues, if you had problems and you were lonely, it was pretty much, that was it. You know, you were stuck with yourself, or you had to physically go out, which might be a challenge. Now they can reach out to a lot of different resources online.
And I personally, I'm a part of some support groups. I'm a part of anxiety and depression support groups because I do suffer from anxiety and deep depression. That's another story to talk about. But you would see people reaching out and people wanting to help each other. And I've gone through where I've had to go to counseling. And I think we helped each other more out talking to each other as opposed to the work groups in the classrooms that we went through. But just by sitting there and listening to each other's problems with no judgment. And it actually made me a better person today.
Mm-hmm. That's a great message. Great message. Hold on, look on. Before I just got to make sure that the horse has not left the stable, because did you take him outside yet?
If y'all know Sean, he's up to something good. If y'all like the Wizard of Oz, this is a horse. Of course, great.
So, I just want to say, going through all this stuff, you know, this whole meditation, I mean, this whole isolation stuff, I tell you, I gotta get a razor blade, you know.
Oh,
really,
see,
really?
This is how we deal with each other, though, with laughter. I think laughter is the greatest medicine, too.
So, just want to end with a little service announcement.
Oh, my Lanta.
So, if you could find just $15 a month to donate towards little Missy here, she needs a home, and $5 a month will help feed her.
See, this is funny. I deal with this, and don't listen to him. He's gonna have to raise my food baby after I'm done with this quarantine right here. He's gonna have to feed the food baby.
Your donation of $15 a month will help out little. Oh, what is that?
That's Olgert's hair.
This is Olgert's hair.
Literally, this is Olgert's hair. Another story. We literally dressed Sean.
Anybody else grown a beard? And is it itchy? Mine's starting to get, was it a week or 2 weeks? It's starting to get real itchy now. I might have to shave it off. But listen, guys, thanks for stopping by. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
And to Newtown Pride FC, check them out. They're a great organization. They're doing great things down there in Sandy Hook down there. Again, always keep the memory of those children alive and those people alive who were so brave down there that day, and we'll hope this keeps them in the forefront and you can hear their voices. But from me, Sean Green, Soccer Coach TV, one love, my heart goes out to you and your families. Be safe. From
what? What's my name? You forgot my name
what's
already?
your name again?
Oh man, from Nicole. Thank you. Much love to you as well. Thank you for having me. God bless.
Peace.
Sean Green at SoccerCoachTV. Just want to thank you for stopping by my YouTube channel. If you find my coaching videos useful, I'd really appreciate it if you subscribe to my channel, press the notification button, so in that way you can receive all the content as soon as it comes out. Thank you.